Hi, this is Tim, Maria, and Teresa, and today we're going to talk about deciphering options flow. We get questions every day in the room about how do we use BlackBox? How do we use this options flow? We're hoping today that this is going to help you get through this and understand it for yourself and better understand it for all of us so that, we got more eyes on the market. We're all seeing the same thing and we're all helping each other. And Teresa's going to get us started. So Teresa, I'm just going to pass this off to you.
Hi guys, this is Teresa. What I want to do first is walk you through the platform that you're actually seeing. So BlackBox has a ton of data and on both stocks and options. We're going to focus on the options side today. So when you first log into BlackBox, this is where you come into. This is mainly the information page for the stock side of the house. So to get to the options side of the house, you're going to come up to the top and you're going to click on options. Options will then default to this page, and this section right here in the middle is where the options flow actually happens. But I want to walk through some of the other tabs first, and then we'll come back to this one, okay? The first tab on the lower left-hand side is the OI tab. What this tab is actually showing you is today's current open interest. So this will not change. Remember, open interest does not change. It's the number of contracts that remain open. The interesting thing about this page is actually the DOI. This is actually showing you the change in open interest from the previous day. So this is where you're going to look to say, are these contracts that I saw coming through yesterday, are those contracts still open? Is that trade still open? Now, this is going to show the top 100. It's actually filtered. So if you click on the filter button, and the filter button is going to be important in every single one of these tabs because it changes and will actually change your view. So right now we're looking at top calls. So what this is saying is that, for instance, NXPI, the change in open interest from the previous day is there are 41,246 contracts that remained open. All right, and then if you go back to the filter button, you can click top puts. So for Apple, for instance, there are 21,386 contracts that are still open. So that filter button is really, really important in terms of looking at in terms of filtering what information that you're looking at. So that's the open interest tab. One of my favorite tabs is the volume tab. And what this is showing is you're looking at the options that are trading several times their average volume. So on this page, what you've got the ticker, the volume for that particular ticker on the day, call volume, put call ratio, average volume, and this average volume is the average 10-day exponential moving average. This is the column that I really look at. I want to see that ADNT is trading 30.6 times its average volume. So you've also got the changes here in these columns between the call open interest, put open interest, daily change, and the calls and daily changes in the puts. We'll talk a lot in the room about the ponytail pump or the things that we hear from the Nigerian brothers. You will actually see that 90% of the time, and what they're talking about will show up in this tab because they're looking at things that are unusual, and high volume is something that's unusual. The next tab is the alerts tab. This is where all the fun is, and this is what we're going to be talking about in greater detail today. So up at the top, these columns, you've got when the contracts are coming through or the trade is coming through, the ticker, the expiration of that particular option, the strike price of that option, whether it's a call or a put, when that trade came through, what was the price of the ticker? That's what the spot price is. This details column is going to walk you through the number of contracts, at what price, and whether it was on the bid or the ask. Next column is type, value, and IV. This is the implied volatility, a great way to see where these options are coming in at and if you should be looking at a different strike to get a lower IV. Now, Maria, in just a few minutes, is going to walk you through some more details about what these are, but this is where the fun is. All of these can be filtered. Again, don't forget that filter button. You can filter by calls, puts, different colored alerts, different strategies, and above the bid and the ask. And simply by typing in a ticker, You can filter the entire alert stream just by that ticker. So we're going to come back to that in just a few minutes on this tab. The last tab I want to walk you through is historical. So say you want to go back and look at the activity from last week. This is where you would do that. You're going to come to this historical tab. Down here at the bottom, you're going to punch in a different date. So I'm just going to go to the 1st. And this will automatically change and show you what the activity has been for the past few days. You can go all the way back to February the 7th, but this particular tab is limited to 100 rows. So the way that you can see more information, again, this filter tab. So start by, if you can't see everything that you wanted to see, or it's not going back quite as far as you wanted to, just start pulling things out. So start pulling out maybe the white alerts, start pulling out puts or different strategies so that this will give you in that 100 rows exactly what you're looking for. So that covers our open interest tab, volume. We're going to come back to alerts, and that's historical. The other thing that I want to let you guys know is that this is the way that the system defaults. So for me, what I'm most looking for the way I keep my screen set up is I'm going to come over here to this news button. And the Fly is a separate service that we provide for our members, and it's amazing. So this news source is pulling from multiple places, including the Fly. But again, we've got these super cool filters. So you can filter and look only at options news. You can filter and look only at ratings news. So we get questions all the time where to look for upgrades and downgrades. This is a great place to do it. And you can just scroll through and see everything that's here. So I think that covers my overview of the platform. Maria, you want to take them into some of the fun stuff?
Well, before Maria goes, I do want to go back to that page where it just showed the flow, the default page. And I also wanted to say on historical, if you really want to narrow it down, when you started at 8/1, put the ending date at 8/1 and then filter it even further. So if you want to see just a particular day, just start and end on that day. So this default page, right, real quick before Maria goes, this is the puzzle. You get that 1,000 piece puzzle and you dump it on the coffee table and you're like, where do I start? This is where it starts. That's coming through just boom, 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 boom. And we're sitting there watching that all day. We're not watching chat as much as we probably could, or even some of the positions sometimes, because we're watching this flow. We're looking for that thing that we want to study further. So this right here doesn't tell you a lot, but as that's coming through and I'm seeing, repetitiveness, then I'm going to click that symbol. And then I'm going to look for common denominators, which we will get into later in this video. But I wanted to just start back at that default and just say, when you first see this, you're going, what am I looking at? This video is going to walk you through that default all the way through. Maria, if you don't care, go ahead and jump on in on some things.
Yeah, I sure will. So, hey guys, here, like Tim said, this is our default view, and you'll see that over here we have, under type, we have blocks and sweeps. Now, a lot of people are not familiar with what blocks and sweeps are. So that's kind of what I want to go over with you guys. Here's where I want to start. Both are orders. Right? These are typically smart money orders that are large. Basically, your biggest difference is that with blocks, it's going to be a single order that's executed on one exchange. They're often negotiated or tied to stock. With a sweep, it's smart money. It's a single order. What happens is that large order is split up and filled across multiple exchanges to ensure the fastest execution. What that tells us is that whoever is placing that order doesn't care if there's a spread. They don't care if the price is moving up and they're buying, a portion of it higher. What it tells us is that they want into that position and they want in right now. So for me, although I'd never ignore block, I probably watch for sweeps a little bit more because in my opinion, it's slightly more aggressive. And let me jump back over here to the system. So over here, you'll see that there are white, it's color coded. It's white, there's yellow, there's magenta. And in our alert key, which again, if you look over here next to the word options, there's a little question mark. If you hover over it, it'll pull up. So anything that comes through in white is a block or a sweep that it indicates that a large block or sweep has come through. It actually also gives you the little explanation of what the difference is between a block or a sweep. So it's just a block, a normal block or sweep coming through. The yellow, when you see something in yellow, it means that open interest has been exceeded in a single trade. So whether that's a block or a sweep, the quantity, the number of contracts exceeds the current OI or that day's OI. The magenta tells you that it is multiple transactions. Again, what doesn't matter if it's a block or a sweep, but it's multiple transactions. And now the current OI has been exceeded. So Teresa talked to you a little bit about the different things here. Again, just to emphasize, the time is the time that the order is coming through. You have your ticker, your expiration date, the strike price, whether it's a call or a put, the price of the underlying stock at the time of the sweep or block. And under details, what I really kind of want to go over a little bit more in detail here is that you're going to see that there are some that are marked with _A, _B, some are not marked at all. And you'll see some that are _BB and _AA. When something comes through without one of those, it indicates that it's the trade filled in the middle. So if it comes through on the with _A, that means that the transaction was filled at the ask price. _B means that it was filled at the bid. _AA means that it was above the ask. And _BB means that it was below the bid. Again, your type, your blocks, your sweeps, the notional value of the contracted or that particular order itself, and the IV. So a lot of people sometimes get a little bit confused with how to interpret those. So let me go ahead and get that pulled up for you. So when you have calls that come through on the ask side or above the ask, that means that it is more than likely someone has bought calls or they are closing calls that were previously written. So that could be somebody who if somebody wrote calls to open and they're closing them, that could come through on the app. If you see a call sweep or block come through that marked with a B or BB, that means that calls have been sold, meaning they've written those, or these are calls that are being closed out that were previously bought. So if I bought, 10 contracts of Amazon or 100 contracts of Amazon and I close that out, that could potentially come through as a sweep. With puts, if you see a put on the ask side or above the ask, that means that they're buying puts or they're either buying puts or closing puts previously written. And if you see puts that are marked with a B or BB, that means that puts were sold, or these are puts that were previously bought that are now being closed. The other thing that I kind of wanted to go over regarding the colors is that the yellow coded flow is probably the only flow that we can say or give that gives us a clear indication of whether it's bullish or bearish because OI has been exceeded. Right? So again, anything that comes through in yellow means that open interest has been exceeded in a single trade. What that means is that anything that comes through yellow is automatically an opening transaction. If you have OI of 500 and 1,000 contracts come through, well, it can't be a closing transaction because you can't close more than what the current open interest is. So yellow coded flow is automatically an opening transaction. So for yellow coded flow only, if you see calls come through ask side or above the ask, again, that tells us OI has been exceeded. They are opening a long position and it is likely a bullish transaction or a bullish stand. Calls that come through in yellow mean that OI has been exceeded. They are opening a short position or they are writing calls and that is likely bearish. On the put side, when you see puts come through in yellow, that means that OI has been exceeded again. Whoever is buying those puts is opening a long position, and that is likely bearish. And puts that come through on the bid or below the bid mean that OI has been exceeded. They're opening a short position, and that is actually a bullish position. So now that we've gone a little bit over some of the main things to keep in mind, let's go through some of these examples. Tim, you want to go ahead and start with Disney?
I do. And before I want to get to Disney, though, I do want also to circle back to Teresa in a second on the top calls and puts because she's really good at going through that. But I also want to go over AA and BB just a little bit more because if we get asked constantly, well, how does something come through above the ask? Let's just use for an example, let's say Apple is trading at 180 by $2. And all of a sudden there's an order big enough to take out the $2, 201, 202, 203. That's above the ask because it started at 2 and it kept going. So just look at it as a market order on steroids. Same thing with BB. So that's how you get above the ask. If it's just the ask, it means there was a bunch at $2 and they took it out. And to circle back to one of Maria's previous slides, yellow, we definitely know that that's an opening transaction. Now, when we still see a bunch of whites or even purples, AAs or BBs or Bs or As, it's still part of the puzzle. Because likely, we can still decipher how this is coming through. You can't guarantee it, but you can still decipher it as part of the puzzle. And Teresa, if you don't mind real quick, let's go ahead and get those top calls and puts in real quick before we hit some examples.
Maria, you just want to go back really quickly to the platform. And really quickly, guys, what you're going to see down here in the bottom left-hand corner, you're going to see top calls and top puts. Basically, what this is showing is it's showing the number of magenta and yellow alerts that came through for a particular ticker. So in this example, we've got Tesla. We've got 80 yellow and magenta alerts with a total value for those trades of $5 million. So when you guys are coming in through the day, make sure you're monitoring these top calls and puts. And then when you click on these, you can do some additional DD in the alert stream to see what's going on. Are we seeing some really big bets coming through on these? Are there a bunch of smaller bets? What's happening, and is there a potential trade there? Thank you, Maria.
And I want to touch that topic too. Just because Tesla has $8 million or $5 million, the flow could be all over the place. So it could be, calls being written. It could be a lot of things. So it doesn't mean come in and buy me now because you see a bunch of stuff with Tesla. It just means, hey, take a look at the flow and see what, the puzzle. Well, let's go ahead and hit some examples real quick. Disney. Disney is one that, as everybody knows in BlackBox, not one of my favorite companies. I've never made that any secret, but I like money. So as much as I sit around and bash Disney on a daily basis and their 3 and 5 year chart and how they are underperforming everything, a couple weeks ago, maybe even 3 or 4 weeks ago, we're starting to see this flow come in on Disney. And it's down here in that first purple box. You can see all these 110s above the ask starting coming in for Disney. Again, these are white and purple, but we know it's like, wait a minute. Why did this all of a sudden come through in this couple-minute period? And so we start talking through Disney and going over, there were some reasons, something about Fox assets or somebody's assets being bought. I can't remember. And more flow comes through. These contracts, a lot of the room would go ahead and say, okay, clean flow, let's jump in this. Now, I ended up getting out of that the next day. Actually, me and Maria had got the wrong call strike, and this was our fault. The room, I think, all caught 100+% on this. So this was an example of just pristine flow. You're not seeing Bs, BBs mixed in this and a bunch of, puts and stuff. This was just pristine flow. A, just constant. And the strikes were moving up. So you can see they started, from buying 110s, they're buying 120s later in the day and 115s. So we could see all the potential in Disney. And, the stock, I think when this come through, I can't read that, Maria, but when it came through was 110 and change, I believe. So we ended up playing this because, again, this was pristine flow. Then a couple of days later, here we go again. Now, I also want to mention that these prices of these contracts are going up. So you see the first AA, you see the second AA, and you see these keep going. The price is going up every time somebody comes in and buys. So we got clear direction on the flow. We got the contracts moving up. You don't want to see them sitting there flat because then, okay, they're just buying something that's not even moving. So, we're looking at everything in this puzzle. So, and plus we just never see flow in Disney, just never see Disney flow. So that was another thing that was unusual for us. So not only was the flow unusual, so was the ticker. And Maria, you want to hit the next Disney day? So you can see that at the beginning of that day, there was some Bs and Bs and stuff like that. Then all of a sudden, here we go again. They're buying the 111s now. The stock's at 110.50, and they're buying like 10 days out, if I remember right. So they're buying the next week, and we're going, okay, here we go again. Boom, AA. Contracts are moving from $1.11 to $1.20, $1.25, $1.30, $1.38, $1.47. We jump in with them. Another one that I think this one probably came close to tripling. We sold it at 100% and wrote some free contracts. And some people, I think, held those contracts a little longer than us and really did well. But this was another example. We'd already seen Disney flow, and then here it comes again. And this day again, they're going from 111s, and they start buying the 120s. Now that 120, there's no B or A. You know, you see the whites there, but it was at 93 and then 95. So I know that's ask side because the contract's coming up and it was, you know, it's going up in price, and it was within a few seconds of each other. So it tells me it was still ask side. So you got the contracts going up and they're buying the 120s. And again, you see them buying 120s continuing, and the price is 95, 95. So we knew this was all ask side, and it's just, again, part of the puzzle. And what is the reason these Disney contracts are going up? So these, you know, Disney, there's no yellows in there, but it was just very, very clear direction. And when I look through this flow, I want to see very clear direction, which we're going to have some more examples of too. So that was our Disney. Again, momentum in the underlying ticker, up and out on the contracts, ask, above ask on the flow, a week after the original started. So Maria, let's go ahead and hit the next one.
Absolutely. So we want to give you another example of what we consider really clean flow. So this is on PayPal. And if you remember back in May, PayPal got Amazon. I don't remember the exact headline, but there was news and that was supposedly going to pull business from PayPal. And PayPal, and actually let me pull up the chart so you guys can see what it looks like. What's highlighted here, this first red candle, that was the news. And on that news, like immediately within minutes of that news hitting, $4 million sweep above the ask. They didn't care how much the spread was, didn't care how much they're paying for it. They came through about 85 or almost 8,600 contracts, paid a total of $4 million into weakness. So we actually did, and I'm actually holding one PayPal October 75 call. I've sold along the way, but I do have one left. What I want to point out is this first one came in, 75 call for October. Then they started buying some 70s. And then we have the magenta flow, which again exceeds open interest, right? These are now, there's been multiple transactions, and now these purple ones are hitting, which means OI has now been exceeded. And they're buying even closer, May 75s coming through. A lot of us in the room did play this. So again, going back to that chart, just so you can see it over here, this first red candle was day one of flow, right into weakness. It's actually at a support area or close to a support area. We jumped on it then. The following day, we had day two of flow, right? So PayPal took even more of a hit. I'll jump back to the chart in a second. I just wanted to show you the flow first. We have another 4 million. Well, this is the 4 million on the second. Here's on the third. We have above the ask, single transactions exceeding OI. And even up further, you'll see this. These are May 73 and a halves. Then they move out to the 74s for May 25th. There's some buying on those. And then they start hitting the 72 and a halves for October. And then you have this $2 million opening block for October, 72 and a half. $4 million the previous day, $2 million coming in the next day. So, and if we go back to that chart, this green candle right here, right over here, where my crosshairs are, that's where the second day of flow came in. And that is close enough to a support area. And you'll see that PayPal did incredibly well right after that, right? Guys, just to clarify also, I hung on to one. I sold along the way on the upside. I did hold on to one only because it didn't break my support level right here. It got close, but it didn't break it. I held on to it. It rallied. I'm still holding it. We'll see what happens. And it's just one contract. And I've already taken profit, most of my profit anyway. So that was PayPal. Again, going back to the PowerPoint here, clear flow, very clean, very clear flow. The biggest thing that stands out to me is there was negative news and there were people spending large amounts of money on PayPal. It had broken key support. Again, also as well, they didn't really care what they were paying for it. You'll see the contract prices moving up as well. Another example of what we like to call clean flow is Square. And this was also beginning of May. So on May 8th, we started seeing magenta again, blocks and sweeps coming through where now OI has been exceeded, coming in ask side and then above the ask. Now, for myself, I was actually watching for an entry on Square. Let me get the chart pulled up for you. And the yellow highlighted area right here, that's May 8th. That's when that flow started coming in. So it had just bounced off of support. I was watching for an entry. I had missed it, but I was still watching for it. I knew that there was a little bit of resistance right through here. And on May 8th, when that flow came in, that was my confirmation, right? So I went ahead and I bought July $60 calls. The spot price was, between 51 and 52-ish dollars. And I think Tim said I was crazy for buying it. if I remember correctly. But I stuck with it, consolidated a little bit, and took off. I sold most
I
of the
did.
position. Go ahead,
I did
Tim.
say you were crazy. It was 20% out of the money, and it was like Maria, but she believed in the chart and believed in the story. She's always been a square bull, so she followed that flow. It wasn't real big flow. It was just consistent, and the entry just looked suspect for a run. So again, nothing massive, but just very, very clean flow. Sorry, Maria.
Exactly. No, you're good. You're absolutely good. So, I took profit. I really, what I was trying to play was a new all-time high break. That was my initial, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to play the all-time high break. I got it. It kept running. I took profit again, as I typically do. I started taking profit on the way up, left a couple contracts, and sold the rest prior to ER because I don't like holding through ER. There's very, very few tickers I'll hold through ER. So that one I did sell ahead of ER, and I am now watching for an entry for the next run up, hopefully. So definitely, again, going back to that PowerPoint, for me, this was clear flow. We have OI exceeded. You can see that even though this one's not marked bid or ask, I'm going to say that it's probably a part of this group. We have, well, actually right here, we have $60 calls that came in. First, just white, didn't take out OI, smaller sweep. This one came in the middle, contract price is going up. They paid $1.57 on the ask, $1.60 on the ask, and it just kept going up and up. So again, it was a chart play where I used confirmation from the flow to place my trade. And after that was Box. Tim, I believe you were going to talk about Box.
Box was one of those that we had never seen flow on, right? It goes back to like that Disney thing. Box, you always see MU flow, right? You're always going to see some Tesla flow. There's tickers you just see flow in every single day, and because you've seen it so many times, unless it's something crazy, you just don't get crazy with it. So Box, we're sitting there watching one day, and Maria goes, somebody just bought Box, and it was a decent sweep, and she started talking about it in the room, and before she could even get done talking about it, here comes another one and another one. So we jump into Box, and with 2 days, 3 days, we caught 100% on this trade. I think we exited a little late. Most people clocked out at 100. I think we ended up clocking out at about 70. We held a little bit longer, but it was one of those situations where you just don't see flow in Box, or at least in this point in time when we bought this. So that was unusual for us. Again, contracts moving up, $1.74, $1.82, $1.88, and it's consistent. And that's, 350 grand right there that somebody put out there. Not a monster bet, not a PayPal bet, but it was still for Box. That's huge. That's like somebody doing $10 million in Apple, right? Because you see 800,000 in Apple, you don't even think about it, right? But with Box, for somebody to buy 350 grand, that's like a Warren Buffett Apple move for Box. So that caught us off guard, caught our attention. We nailed it. So that was, pretty much Box. And that was a good find, Maria. I mean, you spotted that right away.
Thank you. And then you want to go over UAL and DAL?
Yeah, this was probably, what was this, 2 weeks ago maybe? When was the date of these? I don't even remember.
July. It was mid-July.
Yeah.
I know the UAL was July 19th.
Yeah, so we had this flow come on this morning on DAL, and right off the bat, this was 40 minutes after the market opened. I know that says time was 6:10. That's Teresa time, and she's in Alaska, so that was 9:10 Central, 10:10 Eastern. So $1 million sweep, opening transaction, buying right at the money. Only a couple of weeks out, and we're like, well, why? So UAL had just reported, and we will go over both these flows because I was right and wrong about these. And this is something I'd even posted on StockTwits and Twitter, that this is, I'm looking for this kind of flow versus this kind of flow. So what do? We jump in DAL probably after about the fourth sweep through there. The Nigerians also caught it. They talked about it that day on the halftime report. So a lot of people were talking about this. The next day it goes down. Now, people in the room were also looking at the UAL flow. This is the same day. And on the UAL flow, I'm seeing BBs and this, that, and the other, and Bs, As. To me, it wasn't clear flow. The next day, I think that flow kicked ass. My DAL was down. A couple days, and UAL kept going. I couldn't get a clear picture out of that flow. A lot of it didn't even have a bid or an ask, and the contracts weren't moving. So at the top there, you can see those 80s, 705, 705, 705. Sweep, in the middle, contracts not moving, it does nothing for me. Matter of fact, there was a lot of those that day, 80s coming through where the contracts just didn't move. So the rest of it, even if you take that out and just use the ones with B and A's, to me, it looked mixed. I wouldn't have touched UAL. Now the ones that bought it were happy. So that DAL flow did end up going well over 100%. We actually got punked out of it. It went down first. Some people held through it because they're like, listen, this guy bought $1 million for some reason. We're going to ride it out. I was actually in a Tesla trade, got aggravated about something. Anyway, that was my fault. I take full responsibility. I cut the DAL. Some people held it and did really, really well. But that's, again, an example of you had an AA, a yellow in this example, so we know it's an opening bar, and the options just kept coming through. That one was at 129. Now the next one doesn't have an A or a B, but it's higher, and it's only 13 seconds after the first one. So we still know it's probably the same bar. So the contract's going up. The next one, no B or A, but the contract is higher again. And we're only talking about 2 seconds after the one previous. So we know these are all A or at least ask side. Contract kept moving. This guy spent, I don't know, $1.2, $1.3 million on it. And then other people started piling in on that trade, chasing, smart money, us included. So that's the DAL versus UAL. UAL worked out too. Sometimes the shittiest flow works out, but I can't predict that. I can't even guarantee you good flow will work out, but I can tell you that more often than not, smart money wins. That's why they're making $1 million bets and I'm not. So I like to follow these guys. So that's just a good example of me, good flow in an airline and bad flow in an airline. And UAL had just reported earnings, had some upgrades, yada, yada. Everything looked good from a chart perspective and the news perspective. I just couldn't get into that flow. I did, however, get into the DAL. So anyway, that's an example of the same sector of mixed flow versus pristine flow. AMAT. So one day Discord's down and we're all having to get back on BlackBox chat, which we're watching BlackBox all the time anyway, but we yell tickers out in Discord. So I get a text from Geo, and Geo's like, hey man, AMAT's running. He texted us. And if you look at AMAT that day, mixed flow, right? Put, call, different strikes, bids, asks, nothing consistent. All of a sudden, late in the day for that week's expiration, it's stocks at $47. I believe this was on a Wednesday. They start just pounding 48s for that week. Geo sends me a text and says, hey, let's go 47.50s and go the week after. Let's buy ourselves some time on this. But this was an example of the flow changed on this ticker. Ask, above ask, stocks, 21 cents contracts. Above ask again, 21.7. Above ask, 23, 23.8, et cetera, all the way up to 33 cents. And they hit it hard. So that was, a situation where I got a text from one of the roomies, Geo, that said, hey man, check out this flow change on AMAT. He's been doing the flow with us since the day we had flow, so he knows exactly what he's looking for. And this to him was a key trigger. And you talk about killing that trade. We smashed that trade simply off a flow change. And this guy, he probably bought, this total trades here was probably $250,000, but he didn't care what he paid. He started out paying 21, he ended up paying 33. And the stock the next day was like 48.50. I can't remember, 49. It rocked. It was a great trade for whoever bought that. And great eyes on Geo for letting us know. That's a good example of mixed flow to pristine flow. PBR. This is one, people were in the room like, oh my God, look at all this PBR flow. And we're looking at it. And Teresa, I remember saying, honey, that's all being wrote. Look at all the B's. So automatically, this does nothing for me. Unless I want to, go short or something, this flow, you're seeing a bunch of B's. You don't just go run out and buy contracts. This was all stuff being written. Good example of really that's bearish flow, even though it's coming in on calls. And right, 86% of these was calls and 14% puts. So that can be misleading too. Yeah, 86% calls that were bearish calls. So you always got to pay attention to those details. And that was a good catch, Teresa, that day on saying, hey guys, this isn't what you're trying to buy. Even though the call put ratio is, in the bull's favor, it's really a bearish play. That was a good catch. And what do we have next on here?
Teresa, you want to go over the things to remember for us?
Absolutely. And guys, that was a great review of all different types of flow. But the important thing to remember, when you're looking at flow, you have to evaluate everything that's happening. You'll hear us talk a lot when we're talking about trades. What's the story? And the story is all of those little tiny details bits of data that you put together to say, yes, this is a really good trade. It's the same thing when you're evaluating flow. Do you have a ticker that has momentum? Do you see clear direction in the flow? Do you see activity where the strikes, the contracts, and the expirations are moving in a particular direction? Is there something that's going to push that ticker higher, higher, and higher, or lower, lower, and lower? What's the story? And the other really important thing to know is that we only get a certain amount of data. BlackBox reports all of the data that it receives. So we're reporting data straight from the exchange, but reading that flow really is more of an art than it is a science, because we're only given certain data, whether or not something is coming in on the bid or the ask. We've got this big chunk in the middle that we have to make some assumptions on based on everything else. So really look at the entire picture. Don't jump in and buy something just because you see a $4 million block coming through. You want to look at everything that's happening. So not just a single trade. You want to evaluate everything as it's coming through. And always, 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 if you're not sure about something, ask. That's what we're here for.
Absolutely.
I couldn't agree more.
That is the most important thing. Ask, 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 ask. And I mean, we are here to help you guys. We're traders too. So if you ever hit us in chat and you don't think we're responding to you, you got to tag our names, because there's no way we can read 600 traders post every 5 seconds. You have to tag us so that we know you're trying to get our attention. Because again, we're looking for this flow. We're looking for something for us all to make money on. And you know what? 80%, 90% of those flow trades that we pick out probably work out, and most of them hitting probably close to 100%. More often than not, when I stick my money, or these girls stick their money with smart money, over time, the record is, to me, it's the best indicator in the stock market. You can use anything on a chart. And, you know, yesterday somebody had told me, because we had said we got long PayPal, on some PayPal flow, he's like, oh, I'm shorting that today. I'm listening. Hey, man, we don't care about today, tomorrow. We're caring about at the end of these contracts, and the end of those contracts are still kicking ass. So it was a great purchase. So, you know, just because it dips a little bit the next day doesn't necessarily faze me. I don't want my contracts to go to zero, obviously, but even though it has happened, it's not a one-day event when we're buying flow like that. We're not buying it for the next day. We're buying it out in time, following smart money. And we've got, you know, just on the Discord channel, between 500 and 600, you know, very active, for the most part, really, really good traders that's constantly, you know, looking at flow too. And sometimes, even though I call myself glued to it, sometimes they catch it out. Geo caught that flow I didn't find. There's several members that's like, hey, Tim, check this out. And I'm like, wow, I missed that. But they're, you know, dissecting more pieces of the puzzle. I'm watching it as it comes through. They're going through individual names, and they're just, you know, finding what looks good. So we definitely appreciate all you guys and gals and your hard work with us. And really, that's all I've got to say about flow. I mean, I hope that answers some questions. You know, keep asking.
Absolutely, guys. Again, just like Teresa went over, make sure you're looking at flow collectively. If you see, you know, a couple of ask-side sweeps on Apple, make sure you're looking at all of the flow. That's super, super important. You have to look at the flow as it comes in, but you have to be able to also put those individual sweeps that caught your eye, or blocks that caught your eye, and interpret it as a whole. And again, if you're not sure, make sure you ask. And that's all I had. How about you, Teresa? Anything else?
I think that was great, guys. Thanks.
Again, guys, we have Q&A on Tuesdays and Thursdays. If you have questions, you can always ask us during that time, or you can ask us in chat at any time. Just know during market hours, sometimes it might take us a minute to get back. Like Tim said, please make sure you tag us. And we hope you have a great weekend, and we will see you all on Monday. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.